Y'all ready? It's time to talk ball with Spunky Spectrum. Let's ride! Ow. Woke up in the morning, coffee in my hand, another season about to start. I'm the fantasy man, scouting sleepers, crunching numbers late at night, building rosters that gon' shine under them lights. From rookie watch to big revenge, I see it all, stacking points while the league's watching me ball. Best ball drafting, no waivers, just pure skill. I'm taking shots, watch the whole league getting killed. Yeah, the grind don't stop, the picks stay high. When the money's on the line, I connect the dots. We're talking fantasy football, best ball drafting deep. Spunky Spectrum spinning, put a league to sleep. 15 grand on DraftKings, cashed it like a king. Now the whole damn country know I run this thing. Yeehaw, raise them up, another W in the books. Fantasy king, got the trophies and the looks. From the podcast mic to the big check in my hand, this is Spunky Spectrum boys, the fantasy man.
Yo, Big D here, and thanks to my man Hoss for the open. And you know what? Dylan's History of Sports is live, and you know what? Until somebody else gets traded, I thought it'd be a quiet night. We could talk about the topic, but you know, AJ Brown and Myles Garrett trade. So now back to my original stream that I wanted to do tonight. You know, I've done Game 7, I've done, you know, tornadoes, but I thought, what else could I do? How about famous athletes who served in the military? As the calendar flips to June, you know, D-Day's 5 days from today, so we know what happened on this day. I think there's a new movie about about James Stagg, who ended up helping the Allies succeed over Normandy. And you know, there were plenty of athletes who ended up serving the military. Some you may have heard, some you might not have heard. Obviously, Pat Tillman's probably one who is probably one where everybody served. He was safety for the Arizona Cardinals, but after the attacks on 9/11, gave up his NFL career to go fight in the Army and was killed in action, I think in 2004. So it ended up being an emotional and tragic death. To this day, I think there are questions what really happened, whether he was killed by an adversary or maybe one of his comrades. Hey, is that Chai? How do you say your name? Chai? But to this day, I think we're seeing what braveness can do, and what sacrifice the men and women serving this country can do. Another one, Grover Cleveland Alexander, one of the winningest pitchers in MLB history, 373 wins. Wait a minute, what's your take on the 200 being stolen by what? No, I'm not going to comment on that. But back to Grover Cleveland Alexander, 373 wins, 2.56 ERA, Hall of Famer. Was also a sergeant in the Army during the Great World War I, wounded, and somehow came back to pitch, and you know, got the final key outs of the 1926 World Series as the St. Louis Cardinals won their first World Championship. Funny, and I say this, Babe Ruth was thrown out, caught stealing to end that World Series 100 years ago. funny how funny how World Series can end. I can remember games ending. How about a World Series ending with a caught stealing? Yogi Berra. We all remember Yogi as the great Yankee catcher, winning what, 10 World Series rings? Excuse me, 13. Yeah, 18-time All Star, 13-time champ, legendary player. But he also served during World War II. He was what, gunner's mate during the D-Day invasion over Normandy. So, Yogi, not just a legendary catcher, but also a fighter on the beaches of Normandy. And let me see if I could find one. Joe DiMaggio. Well, speaking of World War II, how about another one? Joe DiMaggio served in the 7th U.S. Special Army Air Force. And you imagine what Joe DiMaggio's stats would be if he didn't serve better part of 3 years overseas, because Joe DiMaggio set the all-time hit streak, consecutive games hit streak, 56 games with a hit, and goodness knows what would have happened. Bob Feller. Bob Feller, not just a Hall of Fame pitcher, but a hero. I think he was one of the first athletes to actually go overseas because of the war. Listen, the military. Terry ended up being in the Navy, so actually Bob Feller ended up throwing a no-hitter on opening day, but he lost, what, 3 full prime years because of the war. So, that's why these guys, you look at a Bob Feller, and let me see what his stats would be. And he won 266 games, 3.25 EOA. But he lost 3 prime years, ages 23, 24, and 25. And yet the next year, you could argue was still the best pitcher in the American League. He struck out nearly 350 guys. Oh, and he also walked 370 plus innings. Not too shabby. Come back from war and you're going to throw 370 innings for the Indians back then. Hank Greenberg, another guy who missed quite a few years because of the war. War with the Detroit Tigers. I think he ended up serving almost 4 years. So Greenberg ended up missing several seasons, which is why his stats aren't quite as impressive. If you look at Hank Greenberg's stats, he had, let me see, 331 home runs, 12 plus RBIs. But again, you imagine with another 3-4 years, especially with how many home runs he was hitting in 39, 40. Hank Greenberg probably have 455 in home runs and be a top 4 or 5 first baseman of all time. So let's see. Boy, some of these guys. Stan Musial. How about, obviously, great ball player with the Cardinals, but also served in the Navy. And it's quick. Stan Musial's got 3,630 hits, 1850 at home, 1815 on the road. And that's with missing parts of the 45 season because of the war. Well, if you look at Stan's numbers, they are huge. They're nuts. 475 home runs, and without the war, he might have. Pee Wee Reese, another one. He missed several years with the Dodgers in the 40s and still was part of the first World Series winning team with the Brooklyn Dodgers in 1955. Yes, Brooklyn Dodgers. Of course, Phil Rizzo. How about the Admiral? David Robinson went to the Naval Academy. Draft number 1 overall pick from the Spurs, 1987, but then ended up going into the Navy for 2 years. Speaking of the Navy, how about Roger Staubach? Won the Heisman in 1963. Then he goes serve his country in Vietnam, comes back and becomes the star of America's team, winning 2 Super Bowls for the Cowboys in the 70s. So not just a Navy man, but a legendary football player. His career may have been shorter than some. Because the war let me think. Rocky Black. How about the running back of the Pittsburgh Steelers? But Purple Heart, Bronze Star, actually wounded in action. And yet somehow came back, played for the Steelers, and ended up winning 4 Super Bowls in 6 years during the Steeler dynasty. Oh, it's crazy. Of course, Ted Williams. Remember when he served not just World War II, but Vietnam, but the Korean War, and he ended up losing better part of 3-4 years. You imagine what Teddy Ballgame's numbers would be if he didn't. So 7 prime years when he served doing both the World War and the Vietnam. Now, actually, Teddy Ballgame's only World Series was the year after he returned from World War II. You imagine what Teddy Ballgame's numbers would be. He might be the home run king if not for the Wolves. Well, I think it's crazy what Stan, what Joe DiMaggio, and all these guys could do. Because you imagine these guys thinking, I could be, and it's crazy. The Dallas Cowboys took Roger Staubach knowing he was going to end up serving in the military. This would be like the LA Rams making a pick for 2031. The Cowboys knew that Staubach, A, wouldn't have a long career, and B, would be missing out as Trevor Hughes, but in the end, it didn't matter. The Cowboys were good enough and patient enough knowing Staubach was different. And when Roger Staubach played football, he transformed the Cowboy offense into something the NFL had not seen. Because Staubach's elusiveness and mobility made that Cowboy attack something. Because you think back to the Super Bowl the Cowboys lost, and I don't mean the ones against the Steelers, the one against the Colts. If Roger Staubach is playing that game, good chance the Cowboys win. Because Roger's mobility was something the Cowboys needed with Craig Moore. And in that Super Bowl against the Broncos, Staubach was the star of stars in the dome that night. By the way, Hoyt Wilhelm was in the Battle of the Bulge. Ooh, nice. Ooh, I think he was wounded in the Battle of the Bulge too. Of course, Alejandro Villanueva actually went to the Army. Ended up having a fairly long career with the Steelers, I think, as a left tackle. Vitabino, Staubach. Boy, I did not know this. Warren Spahn was also at the Battle of the Bulge, and then ended up winning 360-plus games with the Braves. Snyder. Homer. I remember, I think it was in '67, Jim Lombard, for doing the Vietnam when guys would leave for a week, couple weeks, and Jim Lombard came back. Actually, won the AL Cy Young for the Red Sox and helped lead the Sox to the pennant in a miracle season. Fortunately, Lombard ran out of gas in Game 7 against Bob Gibson. Not so scrub. Phil Rizzuto, of course, is there. Why then? Steve Masson, Rocky Marciano. In the Army, of course, Joe Lewis. Ken Montero. Why, I did not know this. Whitey Herzog served during the Korean War. Yeah, the Cardinal skipper. I think it's crazy. What do you mean I should? What do you mean I should be relaxed? Hello, are you talking about my koala clock? Are you here? Huh. But even today, you see the Army Navy game. You've seen Air Force play, and I went to see the Citadel play in 2008, Florida and Citadel. And you think, well, Florida's going to kill them, but so different seeing military members at that game, because it's one thing if it's one thing seeing a football game, but it's different seeing one of these military institutions, because these guys are going to bigger and better things, whether it be serving this country. It could be an Army guy, Navy guy, Air Force, whatever. That's more important than any football game. The men and women serving this country need the support. And you know what? I have friends, family who've served in the military. If you're an Army guy, simple, beat Navy. If you're a Navy guy, you beat Army. If it's an Air Force guy, you beat Navy and the Army. That's why. And what a sure. Even today, who is the even today, you think of Griffin Jacks from the U.S. Air Force. Now a starting pitcher from the Tampa Bay Rays. I think Paul Skeens started at the Air Force and then transferred to LSU, where he became the #1 pitcher in the country. But the fact that Griffin Jacks could go to the Air Force and now have a career as a pitcher with the Tampa Bay Rays is something. Because you never thought, hey, a Navy guy, an Army guy, an Air Force guy could pitch in the big leagues. And then seeing Paul Skeens or seeing Griffin Jacks shows what these guys can do. Not just defending this country, but end up having a productive sporting career. I mean, you imagine what would happen if we remember all the men and women serving this country. You think Dave Robinson went to Naval Academy. This guy went here. This guy went here. Yeah. I think everyone who serves is a hero. But seeing Ted Williams or Bob Feller and all these guys put themselves in harm's way and go defend our country. Ted Williams could have stayed and maybe played for the Red Sox in the 40s or 50s. Didn't matter. Bob Feller the same way. And I think what these guys do is showing more class than getting a no-hitter or hitting a home run in Game 7 of the World Series. And it's something. It's funny when people think of Ted Williams, the number everybody thinks of is 406. They don't think of how many years he served in the military. But again, maybe it's a different time, but I almost think of Ted Williams more as a military pilot than as a baseball player, which is strange to think that maybe the greatest hitter who ever lived is remembered more for being a pilot, but that's just me. So, and again, you think of events in baseball history. The Great War may have, and I'm not saying entirely, but may have led to the 1919 Black Sox scandal. Because instead of baseball players getting normal salaries, the salaries were sort of, I guess you would say, reduced because of the Great War. And so, baseball fans show up to the park, but, contracts will, especially for the White Sox, will rather pedestrian. And we know what happened, and that 1919 White Sox team turned into the Black Sox, and probably the ugliest scandal that baseball had ever seen emerge, and Joe Jackson and other guys will basically cast aside. I mean, it's something that we as a sport hopefully never see again, because hopefully we don't have a walk stoppage next year. But I want to thank all the men and women serving this great country, because there might be more higher paying jobs, but there's not a more important job in this country than being in the military. Right? Whether you're in the Navy, you in the Army, you in the Air Force, you in the Coast Guard, you in the Marine Corps. Every military member should be honored, and needs the physical, mental, and psychological support, because those men and women put themselves in harm's way. And seeing all these legends, I don't care what sport it is, and even today, there will be athletes maybe giving up professional careers to go in the armed forces. So, you know what? Next time you see a military member, whether it be a friend, a family member, a co-worker, say, "Thank you for your service." To all the men and women serving this country. That concludes Dylan's history of sports. Famous athletes who served in the military. I will be back with more stories, more history, and potentially more historical undertakings in the world of sports. So this is the Big D signing off for now.